Well, considering how well this did at the box office, you can say this really is a top performer. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a little film you may or may not have heard of, Top Gun Maverick. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it, or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more movie-related content on a near daily basis. But let's not waste any more time, and let's talk about Top Gun Maverick. This sees Tom Cruise reprise his role as Pete Mitchell, aka Maverick. After more than 30 years of service as one of the Navy's top aviators, Maverick's where he belongs, pushing the envelope as a courageous test pilot and dodging the advancement in rank that would ground him. Joseph Kosinski takes over as director from the late Tony Scott, and this hit theaters back in May, where, since I'm getting to this review pretty late, it's gone on to gross over $1 billion. It's currently the highest grossing movie of 2022, and it's the second highest grossing movie of all time from Paramount. Now, as I'm sure this is the case for a lot of people, I have no nostalgia for the original Top Gun. I didn't grow up on the movie, and even when I watched it in preparation for this film, I thought it was just okay. Now, I know there are those who genuinely love the original movie, since they grew up with it at the time, but it seemed from talking to those people who didn't grow up with it, they either just think it's okay as well, or they didn't particularly care for it. Initially, I was in the latter. So because of that, I really wasn't too excited for this going in. I know there was a big marketing campaign, especially with it being delayed numerous times due to the pandemic, but I just didn't find myself excited for it whatsoever, if I had to be perfectly honest. Though I have to say, now that I have seen it, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I came out of this thoroughly enjoying it. I know a lot of people are calling it one of the best of the year, though unfortunately I'm not quite on that level of praise, but it's still great and a major improvement over its predecessor in just about every way. And honestly, if anything, even if you just haven't seen the original movie, you can even probably get away with not doing so, and you'd still have a great time with this. I mean, it's recommended that you do, as it will certainly enhance the experience and deepen some of its more emotional moments that reference the original, but this film also does a good job of explaining everything you need to know through dialogue or through flashbacks, and in a way that feels organic and not just like a simple plot rehash. But my recommendation, even though it's nowhere near on this movie's level, is go see the first one first. Now, unlike the first movie, which I feel has the vibe more in line with a hangout movie, this actually feels more like it's a streamlined plot with emotional stakes that we consistently feel throughout the film. It once again sees a young group of pilots get trained for this special mission, though now it's Maverick as the teacher rather than the student. But there's also an extra layer of emotional weight thrown in there, as one of the pilots is Rooster, played by Miles Teller, who is the son of Maverick's old partner Goose, who died in the first movie, and Maverick has blamed himself for that, while Rooster also resents him for it. And a lot of the film focuses on not just their relationship, but Maverick coming to terms with the worst parts of his past and trying to get closure there. Now, there's a little bit of familiarity in the way in which that's explored. There are a few plot points that I felt were getting pretty obviously set up, like there's another instance where there's a dangerous flight session gone wrong, and some of the relationships feel very similar to the first movie, like Maverick being disliked once more, this time by a vice admiral named Cyclone, played by John Hamm, because of his unorthodox methods. And also there is some familiarity in that trope of someone coming back to their old stomping grounds and coming to terms with old relationships. Like in this case, there's a subplot between Maverick and an old flame named Penny, played by Jennifer Connelly, and they rekindle their relationship while Maverick's dealing with everything else throughout the film. It's a tale as old as time. But even with that, the way it's all handled, it's still very endearing. Tom Cruise is just great here. He's as charismatic as ever as Maverick, while still maintaining some of that same cockiness he had in the first movie. Like, a big thing of his is how he loves pushing the limits of test equipment and how he loves not playing by the rules. But the way it's all done, he's still very compelling here. And there were times the movie felt like it was drawing parallels between Maverick and Cruise himself, which made this feel a little more heartfelt. Like, Maverick's viewed all throughout this as essentially quote-unquote the last of his kind. He's essentially the only one left from his original class, still around, and he doesn't want to adhere to the new rules and the new way of doing things. And in some ways, that's how a lot of people are currently viewing Cruise himself. A lot of people are calling him the last movie star, which I don't know how true that is, to be perfectly honest, but he is at the very least someone who can pull in a lot of high box office numbers based on just his name alone, which is something you're not seeing as often as you used to. Not that there aren't big stars out there, and not that we don't get original movies in theaters anymore with big names leading the cast, and the marketing is based around them, but Cruise pulls in huge box office numbers, especially evident with this now pulling in over $1 billion. And he's still someone who can pull in the numbers he does just based on his name recognition alone. And now at 60 years old, even though this was shot back in 2018 and early 2019, he's still putting himself out there, doing these very ambitious, bombastic, action-packed blockbusters that are also very stunt-heavy, and see him doing a lot of his own stunts. Like, he'll put himself out there for some of the most dangerous stuff, which is certainly a far cry than we've seen from his contemporaries who are now also around the same age. And you don't get a lot of that anymore, so in some ways that makes a lot of Maverick's journey feel more endearing for how much it also reflects Cruise's own career, and it makes him a much more compelling character than he ever was in the original. And another endearing aspect of the film is the relationship among all these younger pilots, similar to the camaraderie that drove the original movie. And this was a fun group to follow, with the other most prominent member besides Rooster being Glenn Powell as Hangman, with the two having a similar rivalry to that of Maverick and Iceman in the original. Though I'd have to say, besides these two, there wasn't anyone else who was a real standout in this group. Like, a lot of them you really only get to see within this group dynamic, but seeing this group together was still fun, with the banter among them offering some nice lighthearted moments with touches of humor that'll make you smile in between some of the heavier moments. Though, speaking of Iceman, Val Kilmer is our only other returning cast member from the original here, and the film incorporates Kilmer's own battles with throat cancer into Iceman's arc, and it feels very sweet and heartfelt. And again, it really added a whole new level of depth to this character, while still finding a way to honor Kilmer himself. He's only in it briefly, but the time we spend with him is honestly one of the film's best moments. But of course, you can't talk about this movie without discussing some of the breathtaking visuals, with the film being shot all in IMAX format. The aviation scenes in particular here are nothing short of stunning. While they were one of the most entertaining parts of the first movie, they are gripping here, with some truly intense stunt work. And with the crew using real aircrafts with numerous POV shots from inside them, it truly creates this immersive experience that makes for such a thrilling action movie. And like, so immersive to the point that I was on the edge of my seat multiple times with this pit in my stomach for just the way it felt like I was right there. And again, it feels like there's true emotional stakes during these moments. One, because the characters, while not all perfectly written, are mostly much better developed here than what we got in the original. And two, with a much more streamlined story this time around that has characters actively working towards this mission, things gradually intensify as the training goes on and they get closer to the start of this mission. And we see the limits that these characters all have to push themselves through. So you feel much more invested, on top of the fact that it all just looks great. And then we get to a final act that was just riveting, as well as emotionally satisfying in the way in which all these themes of forgiveness and redemption nicely cross paths with a lot of its action-packed spectacle. And I gotta say, this found a really nice balance of pretty much everything, from its character drama to its action, with a dash of humor thrown in there, and you're able to feel so much throughout this, which is what I think makes a good blockbuster. I've said this before, I don't need something to be so serious that it's almost totally void of a personality, so that there's action and there's drama, but that drama doesn't feel heartfelt. I found this to find that sweet spot of giving us a little bit of all that. Again, with some stuff just feeling so familiar, it doesn't quite hit like best of all time or best of the year levels for me personally, but for everything it did right, it made this quite an entertaining experience. Top Gun Maverick is an improvement over the original in just about every way possible. While it features setups that might feel familiar, its execution is nothing short of riveting, with a lot of visually stunning aviation sequences, an emotionally compelling storyline about redemption, and a slew of great performances, including Tom Cruise at his absolute best. It's a legacy sequel that soars, and it's one that shouldn't be missed. Top Gun Maverick gets an 8 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Top Gun Maverick, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Is it one of your favorite Tom Cruise movies? Is it one of your favorite movies of this year so far? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.